this morning. I hope that you guys are doing well. And yeah, I'm wearing the same clothes because whenever I come here and record, try to record 2 lectures. So maybe I don't know whether you guys noticed that every 2 lectures my clothes is changing. So I already finished 1 lecture today and I'm recording another one. So last week, last lecture, we talked about the human relations. And it means that as a for administrator and as a human skill is really important, right? You need administrators associated with other people, students and teachers and staff and parents and communities, because as the society is changing and human human relations are changing and it's not a kind of authoritative leadership at schools and other organizations. Still, we already saw that they're using that one, but still they open to schools open to public, community and parents and teachers and children and students to involve in making decision process, right? They can show their leadership skills in running the school. So a lot of nowadays and also they use participative leadership styles and then and facilitative leadership styles. That's why we open the door to the different peoples and we share the leadership with share the leadership with others, and then also human skills is more important. Interpersonal skills are more important, right? And one of the skills for the interpersonal skills is communication. And if you think about if you are not a good communicator, and then how you deal with the problem occurred with others, right? And sometimes as a leader, maybe you have to mediate between them, and sometimes you try to suggest, give them some recommendations and advice. That's the communication skills, right? And sometimes there is a vision is there and goal is there. How can you deliver your visions and goals to staff and to teachers and to students, even kind of more parents to get more support? So communication is a really important factor for school administrators. And today, so we're gonna a little bit talk about it's like a theory basis, and I'm not gonna talk about the practical stuff, and then maybe theories gives some insight how to communicate what you need, and then there is structuralist, functionalist theory for communication. So the theories is really emphasized on the series of communication exchange. Occurs and functions among the unintended consequences of actions. And there's a lot of just think about as an administrator, and then you have your job, right? And then with your job's description, maybe you can communicate with them, teachers, and sometimes you don't have to you don't have any intentions to persuade people and to buy people's opinions. That is just the functions, right? And exchange information and directions like this, and then but this is literally shared belief in independent and objective reality, and it means that the administrator is supposed to know the what? Also, objectivities and what's going on, and then still need to show with the other people who show the what? The leadership, right? And so insistence on the separation symbols, the language from the object, and thought, object and thought being symbolized in communication. So you gotta be objective, don't be symbolized in communication, right? So functionalist means that there's some structure is there, there's a function is there, and then we gotta know each other, and we know our jobs. Right? And then that's the basic common belief, and then there's a function is there, and then just the talk, communicate. So usually the structuralist and functionalist theory, and then already structured, and job description is there, and then usually top down, the communication. It's a hierarchical order is there, and I'm an administrator at this school, and what they kind of direct and kind of give them direction and instructions. So top down is really formal, and then communication. So there is kind of load, is a moderate load, is a kind of quantity and volume and rate of the complexity of messaging, and what. There's a moderate load mean that you don't have to force them much, even though it's a top-down communication, because we already know the belief and our roles, right? And I know as a leader, I know my role, and as a teacher, and he needs the role, and as a student, and as a staff, they need their roles. So you don't have to much force them, but there's a moderate load, right? But there is a minimal subjective distortion, meaning that there is a clear direction is there. And clear direction is there, and then it's hard to misunderstand, right? There is no distortion, minimalized distortion. So in this setting, usually communications kind of going on at most public schools, right? Who is most responsible? And administrator. And maybe there is kind of still association and maybe someone is kind of in charge of it, and then eventually was administrator supposed to responsible for all communications, right? And another theory is a cognitive behavioral theory, and then cognitive in there we already talked about the motivation, process motivation theory, and then there is a process, right? A stimuli there, and response and outcomes there, and there's a behavioral understanding basically. And then what about cognitive, and then there's a cognitive process and response and outcomes there. And this one is from the psychology, psychological science, and then they say knowledge is generated through the discovery of a psychological mechanism. Right there. Just think about and the environment contribute to what? Change the behavior. Like there is a psychological mechanism is there, and then influence the behavior like that, and then knowledge is generated through the discovery of a psychological mechanism. And there's a mechanism is there like behaviorism and cognitism, and there's a mechanism, right? Process, and then they can get some knowledge there. And then this theory is a communication is a manifestation of individual behavior and thought process. That's the communication, and that's a process, right? And so, including the neutral basis for this manifestation. So, just shows how you think, how you, shows your behavior based on how you think, how you feel, right? That's a communication. So, this theory thinks that the major variable having an impact on the cognitive functions and the its appearance is behavior. So like language behavior like that, and then outside personal control. So think about your psychological functions, cognitive functions, and in your behaviors. What? Behaviors the outside the control, your control. So there is a big kind of variable. It's a cognitive process and functioning, and its appearance kind of outcome. Behavior is it's like a language, and then really out of control because you are influenced by the sometimes and these cognitive process, right? So here is really emphasized the Thorne's effect, giving management attention to human relation factors and favorably impact on the organization success. And then if it was a person, the workers are really observed by and managers and leaders, and they could behave better and work as outcome is better. Right, working outcome is better. There's kind of a whole effect. That is kind of same thing. If you are observed by and reinforced by an environment, and then observed by people, and then what? Your behavior is going to be changed, right? Like this, better. That is the cognitive behaviorism theory. That is based on what's the environment and how input, how people got input by surrounding environment, and what their behavior, their communication is changed, right? That is, we already watched there's leadership styles and how affect the communication styles, right? And two, authoritative communication style always, and there is no reciprocal communication, always a top-down process, communication process, right? But benevolent authoritative, they are concerned about the people a little, and then what? Still, there is reciprocal is there, but consultative and participative, and then usually they was reciprocal communication from top to bottom, bottom to top. Another theory is interactional conventional theory. It's from this theory is from the sociology and anthropology and philosophy of language. So there is a key concept is a symbolic interactions. When you talk about communication, it's a theories and verbal communication and the non-verbal communication, right? And what is a verbal communication, and then maybe sound and the contents that you deliver. But non-verbal communication is your volumes, my gestures, my eye contacts, and all things except on the verbal communication. But it's really important, right? And sometimes your reaction is like like this, and then excuse me, and then what it means, it's a symbolic. Excuse me, and then why you are communicating, excuse me, and then oh, I don't get it, and can you explain like this? You just nodding your eyes and you agree like this. And there's an interaction and communication theory, right? So key concept is symbolic communication as well. And so social existence, social, we are the social being, is existence view as a process of continuous interaction that establish, maintains, what, and sometimes altered via certain social convention, social norms like that. And that's why during the process we communicate, right? And that is that's why human beings, why they interact and continuously interact. It's not a certain time and then they watch, right? And just think about when you use this theory to the school setting, and it's not all just one week. Let's see what's going on, and then but as long as the administrators stay school, and then they gotta continually communicate with teachers and students and staffs. But for what? Why do you wanna interact with them? Why? This will establish visions and achieve the visions and then achieve the goals and like this, right? Sometimes it doesn't work, we've got to change it. So communication is a process of creating social reality and corresponding cultural norms and values, right? And there is sometimes, yesterday I met my pastor, and he's from El Salvador, and then nowadays I'm attending a small Hispanic church, and usually I go to 2 services, and then one is the other church, and then that church is starting at 12 o'clock, and I try to be there to learn Spanish. And then I met him, and then we had lunch together, and then he said that even though we have the same language, and sometimes it's hard to minister others, because he's from Mexico, he's from Honduras, and he's from El Salvador, and he's from Ecuador. And we call them Latinos. But there's a language is same, but sometimes nuances a little different. Their culture is different. So we gotta be careful. That's a miscommunication is there, even though we use the language, same language. But just think about communication that we use a kind of interaction with other, continual interaction, and then we understand, right? And understanding and kind of communication will create the social reality, what's going on, and we understand, right? So we gotta know the cultures and values and norms, and it's easy. That is to really emphasize, and then just if you use just a language, and then you could know the kind of culture and norms and values, like a functionalist, it's hard to communicate to heart and heart. And then understanding each other. Maybe there's like on set, everything is said, and we know why we need to, what we need to supposed to do, and then we agree, and then there's no problem. But still, this interactional as a conventional theory is that we delivered lot of symbolism, right? Symbolic interactions, communicate with the symbolic interactions. So that one, if we use this theory and then organization culture is really important, right? Because a lot of symbolics and values are there, and then when you communicate and then use this one, right? And so it's really important for the organizational culture. So maybe we cannot separate each one of these theory. Maybe there is a clear belief, shared belief is here and function is there. That's a structuralist and functionalist communications there. But when you go to school, clearly even there is a formal relationship or informal relationship, there is a structure is there, right? Each job function is there, and then maybe as a human being, just think about you interact with and there is we want to achieve goals and we want to do something, and then we cannot ignore the environmental stimulus, environmental input, right? That's the behaviorist and cognitive theories. And then, but even more than that, we consider our culture is there and norms and values are there, still continuous reaction is among the peoples, and then we create social reality, and then based on what we have, understanding each other, not just the verbal communications, right? That is a theory. So another theory is that what I want you to try to say is that if you go to school and there is everything is there, right? And you don't even know the kind of structure. It's just job functions, and we cannot even know the what's environmental stimuli. We cannot even know the cultures and symbolic stuff. And then, but here's another one: is interpretive and then critical theories about communication. This one is from the variety of the investigative tradition and interpretive sociology, right? Mean that they are really critical and theoretical, and there is a phenomenology and hermeneutics and how you understand the phenomena and interpret interpret. That is from the interpretive and critical theorism from the Marxism and Frankfurt schools. And so that interpretive critical theory is really it's a really preeminence of of the subjectivity, not objectivity, and high values associated with individual experience. And it means that depends on your background and depends on what you experience, and then what your point of view is different, right? Your understanding is different. And yesterday I was driving, and I kind of a lot of things. Sometimes I have a lot of thought why I'm driving, and then think about I was thought about the perspective, and there is something is there, and then actually it's about missionaries, and then missionary who left everything behind here and family and everything, and he moved to another country and live with other people in different culture, right? But a lot of people think that they live in not whole countries, right? They live in certain area and they developed their ministry. They also they mingle with the culture and people, and then try to share the gospel with them. But there is kind of culture is really limited. They cannot see the whole culture. Maybe they can see something and experience something, right? But in America, we are living in California, right? So a lot of the certain part is really conservative. What about each coast, right? All the West Coast, East Coast are really liberal. Sorry. Yeah. In theories, if you go to Arizona and they say they have a different perspective of California, and then they think that they are different from California. So like there's a differences there. I mean that everybody experience and perspective is different, right? So that's why, and then really people's communication is depends on the general experience, right? So they try to value the meaning of great significance, and as meaning is really important, right? And usually communication is really based on the individual, not the group to group. So this one is really how you how you see the society and how you experience the society and people, and then that's a starting point of communication. That's why they developed the critical theory, right? And trying to change society. And so just think about and which one is really effective in communication, especially in organizations. If you go to school and then there's people who have a different background, ethnic background and cultural background and socio-economic background, students are different. And that's why we got to reflect, when you talk about communication, we got to reflect all four theories. And structuralist and functionalist theory, and cognitive and behaviorist theory, and then there's another one, and action and conventional theory, right? And then interpretive and critical theories. And so I know we try to communicate with each other, but we are different, though, right? That is the theory. Depends on, just think about which one is effective communication theory. Depends on the context, and then we cannot say that also. We cannot say that they are popular and then charismatic and maybe he's a good communicator, maybe, but still, how can we say that what is most effective communicator, and who is a really effective communicator, and which method is most effective? And then if you want to make effective communication, it's written very clearly, and orally and verbally or non-verbally communication, and then maybe it's perfect, but we cannot make perfect communication though, anyway. So depends on the people's style. Some people write very well, they like to write, and then maybe they communicate in writing, maybe books and articles, and someone is really a verbal communicator and oral communicator, and they use the verbal and speech is really best way. Someone is really use a lot of non-verbal, but they express very well, and they help audience to understand what the communicator tried to say, right? So how can we differentiate what is the organization communications from others? What is the organization communications? That is a basic communication theory based on the academia. It's like discipline, and this one is organization communication. Maybe we can apply this theory to the organization. One of prominent theories, Eggerelson and Steiner. Eggerelson and Steiner's in 1964, and they said that for organization is communication is there's formality, and there's goals and regulations and policies and procedures there. So we gotta remember in communications, right? There's formality, and there is a hierarchical manners, and administrator has more responsibility in running school than teacher, right? And then he has more administrator more responsibility than teachers in running school, and then that's a hierarchy, more powers. But depends on the leadership style and then how can you use their power, right? That hierarchical manner is there. We gotta remember that one. Another thing is the development of a close personal relationship with the other members, right? And depends on the organizations. Maybe they open and try to we already saw the human relations and like 40 and 50 and try to open the door for the more concern about human. So close relationships limit the scope of informal organization communication. So there is kind of there is organizations like how they relate to each others, right? There is a relation is there, and what about existence of people beyond the time frame of given members' life? That is another thing is that sometimes some people are just starting work a year and 2 years, sometimes 10 years and 20 years, and there's a difference there in existence, right? And there's a kind of you gotta consider when you communicate in organization, and someone who stayed long and maybe they know each other, know other people, and communication style really be different, right? Because they know each other. And there is basic concept is there, but still what is really important is organizations, communication, so leadership style is really important. We already saw that, and there is try to show about leaders and the managing how different their communication styles are different, right? And that's why I bring up here. And then if you are administrating and leading and have a vision and strategy and try to create the values and cultures, and then influence, inspiration others, and having followers and leading people, and people really focus, and then you use your charisma, and a lot of things, it's different, proactive, appeal to not their mind and their heart, because they want to persuade and they want to motivate and inspire, right? But if you are managing level of a leader, and then not the leading but managing leaders, they always think about policy and procedure, communication is very clear, like a structuralist, and then what? The functionalist. And they count the values and then not creating. Counting is keeping, maintaining. And there is a power control, and then maybe subordinate there, and then really work is there, and then their leadership, what's authoritarian style leadership they're using, and there's it's a different though. Leading and managing is different. It means that your communication style is different. If you are as an administrator, you wanna really lead people, or you wanna just manage people. Managing is kind of not go beyond the boundary and make successful like this. And then there is a common ground this year. Accomplishing goal, expand vision, and organizational work. Figureheads, motivate others, mobilize resources. But leading and managing is different, right? And communication is different. So, like a superintendent or principals spend 70% more of their time communicating. Do you know how much they spend time on communication? Nowadays, maybe you don't have to face to face, but you can talk, texting, maybe you can communicate in Zooms and a lot of different ways, right? Here it is. Chief executive officers in corporations spending 78% of their time in oral communication with the low-level manager. So chief executive, lower-level managers spending more than 80% of their time. It's a communication is really important. Why is it the number is not the difference, but how you explain the difference? Maybe depends on this one, right? And you gotta check not only to maintain very well and achieve the goal. So, ability to communicate as a critical factor of manager is a kind of give them promotion of promotability. So there is, and how can you, even though it's like think about if you are leading or managing and as a leader, and still spend a lot of time on communication, right? A lot of time communication. Just I wanna the book our text how important the communication and what kind of communication need depends on your role, and that's in organization. So factors affecting the organizational communication. What factors affecting communication? What factors? Just think about the theory, right? This is a basic diagram of communication. There's a sender is here, right? You communicate and channel is here and receiver is here. And there is, and then maybe sending is a channel is here, and then there's you got a feedback is here. Okay, maybe say no, yes, that's one of the feedback. So communication is both ways, it's not one way. Not right, even though whether it's a top down or bottom to top, it's both ways, it's a communication. So one way communication is about authoritative communication style or dictative communication style. There's no communication, just order, right? But there is a feedback is there and message is here. How can you send a message? send the message to the receiver, receive it and come back. What? Feedback, and then sender get a feedback and communication. Just think about how you communicate daily, right? What about the organization's communications? What factors influence? That's a basic diagram of communications. It's okay. If you are a church, one of our organization, religious organization, maybe if you work a company, and if you have a non-profit organization, and then what factor affecting organizational communications? Clarity. How can you avoid vague and misunderstandable communications? How? How can you make deliver your communication clearly? Sometimes nonverbal communications may be barriers to make your message clear, because people sometimes pretend to understand and okay. Sometimes, right? They don't interested, and then what happened? They are not interested, and they don't have any knowledge of that, and there is a specific any combination, cognitive-based understanding and project messages. What about the personal characteristics, right? Emotion, all kind of non-verbal ways, non-verbal communications it may make a kind of barrier, may deal with misunderstanding. So we gotta know that. So how can you, we gotta learn how to use the nonverbal communications. What about the verbal barriers? When you communicate, verbal is what you say, language, right? Depends on what word you choose. Sometimes, and I don't know, each word has their own kind of nuance and right using depends on the culture. So even though it's wording is use the word is here, but if the word go to another country and then the meaning is changing. Like one word is here. My kids are really laughing when they heard first, and we said that they were usually fighting, right? Cheer up, and names and try to support and kind of inspire and support them and cheer up and use it like that. And then in my country, Korea is a fighting. It's a fighting. It's a little bit, there is no F sound, so F sound is always called whiting. So whiting is it's a little bit sound is changed and then meaning is changed. So meaning is cheer up, go. Yes. Sometimes in the morning I share when I share my devotion with my family members, I write down the English in English. Whiting, Hawaiting. It means that, cheer up. So sometimes, how can you use the word in a sentence and then kind of changes the messages because of the words, right? So how can you pick the semantic vocabularies, right? So sometimes the word has 2 meanings and 3 meanings, depends on the sentence and the context, right? And So how can you use the adequate vocabulary and avoid the inadequate vocabularies? That's what we gotta consider. Non-verbal barriers and then verbal barriers and then what? Cultural difference. I already shared my pastor's story. He's doing a lot of Latinos. They're not from the different, they're not from one country, even though they speak Spanish, but came from the different country, and then meaning is a little bit different, nuance is a little bit different, and they take it differently, right? Because the culture is different. The cultural difference is here. When you say use the non-verbal communication, sometimes I should really use the opposite way. It depends on the cultures. When you call the people like this, in that it's really in my country it's a despising way. They don't call like this, right? And then we don't use this way, and then this one is very kind of really look down on the people. But here, call the people sometimes here like this. Here. They don't meaning of the kind of looking down on the people. And sometimes when it's non-verbally and then we are really close and then here is that they touch their hair and then it's okay, mostly. But in my country, Korea, and then if you touch the hair, it's not good, right? It's really offended. Like it's different though. So we gotta know that, try to make a clear message, and then you gotta consider cultural difference. And then individual differences there too. It's hard, that's why. So that's why when you go to school and you gotta know the teacher's background, and when you go to certain conference, when you speak, you gotta know the audience, why they are here, what's their background. And I have a chance to preach when I went to Mexico. I was really hard. Sometimes I don't know who they are, and then I know just they are really struggling in life, and sometimes they don't have money to buy food, and then I know the factor, but I don't know their spirituality, degree of spirituality, and I don't know how long they attend the churches, and then I don't know the people about, right? So where about, and what are they doing? And then once, and okay, can you preach on Sunday? And then I was kind of blackouts, right? Blackouts, and then what? Blackouts and what? And I'm getting used, and as times go by, and next year and another year, we had a relationship, and I might understand it better with them, and then what? It's kind of this burden is kind of a little bit disappeared, little by little. And that is all. Sometimes people really like when I talk in front of people, not me. I like a small group setting, like a seminar, and not like a public speaking in public, like in front of 1,000 people. So I don't like to talk to them. Maybe I can do it, but my preference is not. It depends on the personality, all right? And a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people about reporting. We can hear a lot of stories from pastors and missionaries and other people, and try to impress their ministry to others, and then, right? I say people around to my wife and others, and just take 60 to 70% and 30 to 40%, and just eliminate. Maybe a lot of people kind of exaggerate and then a little bit twist. Not false, not that's true, but a little bit twisted and then looking better and then like this. So I always think about that part because our tendency, basic tendency, we are doing well and good and we want to acknowledge by the people and a little bit twisted. It's not, even though it's true, but it's presented a different way, right? And then sometimes it gives a false impression about people and work. So try to remember that if we want to make really clear communication and then clarity message and then think about non-verbal barriers and then verbal barriers and then cultural differences and personal differences. What about another one? Another thing is the credibility. Sometimes, if they are not a good speaker, but if you trust the speaker and then you know, it's really accepted, right? And believe. But if we don't believe them, even though like a mega church pastor and then, but a lot of people give them credit because of the church growing fast. But if you don't trust them and then you don't listen to them. Like me, I don't care about how big church is, right? I try to see that their integrity, whether it's a small setting or big setting, and try to hear about him and how he's doing like that, and then try to give them credit. And that's why building a credibility is really important. It means that maybe if your values kind of similar, and then there's a lot of ways to build up the communication and the credibility and spend more time and get know each other better, and maybe thinking similar and direction is similar, goal of life is similar. Anyway, we gotta build up the credibility is like through the formal way or the informal way. What is formal way? Maybe you consider their whole education background, you consider whole accomplishment, right? Documentary, you can talk to them and informal, and then maybe question and answers like that. You can hear about it, but later on, maybe informal relationship, maybe you can play golf together, play tennis together, and maybe hiking together, and then you can see in a lot of different settings and observe and and then you could hear about how it's to the public life and like this, and then it's really important is as a leader, as a communicator, credibility is really important. When I give, it depends on the people. When I give them kind of credibility, one of the criteria is integrity. Integrity. How would they respect a human being? They really respect the human dignity, right? That's my big criteria. Whether it's poor and rich, whether well-educated and less educated, and whether live in America and live in other country, it doesn't matter. So human being has unique dignity created by God. So I want to see that one, whether really people respect as a human being itself, right? That is really important for me. And some people is really authoritative, and then it's really trying to arrogant, and then they don't respect their subordinate and other people, and then I don't like them. people try to manipulate others with different ways, and then with a lot of different ways, and then I don't like them, right? I don't give them credibility. Depends on, so building up credibility is really important, building up credibility. What else? What else? And kind of directionality, how you communicate. Sometimes we use vertical. You gotta talk to your subordinate and you gotta listen to, but sometimes we gotta communicate horizontally. And vertical is a top-down communication in traditional design American schools. Mostly, the research said that 80% of original message has been filtered out. It's really important then. Right? 80% of the message is filtered out. Horizontal is really between the individual at the same authority level, level in the hierarchy. Even though you are CEO and sometimes you can lay workers as a human being communicate, right? Also the function is different, but as a human being it's the same. You gotta concern about each other. That is a horizontal communication. The directionality is really important too. So that one is upward communication is like bottom to top. It depends on degree of trust and low level stakeholders have in their sort of superior, right? And so that's why leaders need to open the door for communication for everybody. Sometimes we don't know the people. I know we need to screen out which one is true and which one is. So leaders can, we don't know everything, right? Sometimes here is some complaint, there is some complaint, and here is some suggestion, and so like that. So we need to listen, but we gotta discern which one is really right and really deep. So sometimes the bottom to top is a word communication. That's why we need to open the door. And so sometimes you really need it, right? Last night I read the Bible with my wife, and then there is some issues. King David, and then David's subordinate solved the problem, and then he employed a woman, and then he gave all what to say, and then behave like this, and then go to say to David, and I was surprised that there's a king is there, and one woman is there, and then go and all, Lord, I want to talk to you, and then they communicate with the issues and appealing her problem. And then it was a fake, but still, king opened the door for one of his people. And like this, and then as a leader, if a leader doesn't have humility, right? Doesn't have any dignity to respect human being, and it's hard to do that. And just think about really emphasize my achievement, my functions, my jobs, and then my status, and then it's hard to open the door. But if you open the door, it's really amazing. So when I was in secondary school, and then at the time, so we used to run, and it's hard to talk to the dean of your school. But the new dean came from America. So here's at the time a big church, and he came to our school as a dean, and then we are sitting on the grass and talking, and suddenly he showed up, and then he dressed up, right? He dressed up and regardless of whether he wear the jean or not, and but he dressed up, and then he suddenly sitting on the grass. It's hard to see that at that time in Korea, and then engage the communication with us. I was really surprised. Yeah, that is willing to open and try to talk to student and try to listen to student as a team. And there is, if you really top down what is a communication style, and then what's a body cut, and then what's a reciprocal communication style, and vertical and horizontal communication styles are really different, right? If you are both and horizontal and the vertical, and then really is your communication goes beyond the SWOT and really decentralized, and then but if you have kind of top down kind of communication style is what really centralized, and then you have just in the middle of the communication, and maybe you around a few managers there, and then you can communicate there one. So because of the authority given by the company, but this one is decentralized, and then you have not the upper few managers, but maybe middle and lower level managers, you are connected and communicating, right? And maybe making decision. That is decentralized communications. And centralized communication, you work with the top managers. And so authority is given by the what? The company, and the chain of command is there to give, but these decentralized communication style is authority given those who are close to stakeholders, right? And so companies was a little bit different. His is really more standardization, is more organization self-sufficient, and really making making decision is a more controlled, right, process, and then more expensive because it's decentralized, and here there, but less expensive. Just a top and make a decision, but more creative because a lot of people, different level of people involved in communication, and then more creative and limited creativities. And try to manage the whole organization working well. So it depends on your communication style, and then you could have different ways. So maybe if you apply this one, and then in school setting, maybe you are the authority principals, and then what? You just talk to the what? Maybe and vice president. Maybe, right? Vice principal, maybe 2, 3, and then maybe you can talk to the superintendent like this, and then and decentralize, and maybe you can go to, there is a lot of association, maybe teachers association and department association, and maybe student association, and you can have different level of the representatives there. You can engage and talk like this, right? And you could invite them, so you could hear the different people's opinion, and then that's why it's creative, but more expensive. Depends on what kind of communication styles you want to take. And then just we talk about credibility, clarity, organization, communication. You want to think about clarity and credibility and then directionality. Which way? Was it top bottom, or bottom top, bottom up, or vertical, right? But there is other also factors there. Availability of the opportunity to interact, and then that also depends on the leader. So as a administrator, and then if you create more involved in people and kind of interact with others, and then you can more opportunity to listen to them and communicate them, right? That is availability to opportunities. Depends on the leader. If you have more traditional leader as the administrator, and then maybe your availability is kind of limited to certain people, right? And another thing is that the degree of the coherence of the group. What's the coherence of group? Maybe people have I'm really proud of being a part of a group, and pride has a group, and they are loyal to the organization and groups, right? Depends on degree. And if you don't have any loyalty and just for work for your living, and you're not interested in do something, achieving something in the work, and then maybe just follow the direction, and then it's hard to be a part of a group. I know in terms of work it doesn't matter, because you willing to pay for we willing to pay, right, your labor for money. So that is degree of the coherence of the group in one of the factors, right? And the status of individuals or groups, and that is a kind of affecting on the organizational communication. So if you have traditional and formal organization, and then this is really important. So formal organization is really important. But if you have informal organization and really open system, and then they are willing to listen and then try to get the insight because of your status. I was kind of struggling with with my status while I'm working in an organization, and then they really emphasize experience. I understand, but sometimes experience is limited and you cannot say, right? My opinion was that you cannot experience everything, but there's a lot of available indirect experience, reading books and articles, and people, they publish their experience and through the journals, and then little bit organized and studies and share their life, right? But a lot of people, they don't listen to them, and so on. They think about their own experience. So that's it's really even though you don't have a little status, and then but people have kind of ear to hear, and then maybe they can get some insight. But depends on the society and depends on the group. That is really one of the factors influencing the organization communication. Another factor is about two-directional communication flow, and then communication is an interaction. Do you know the interactions and two? And if you see that one the theory, and then how you communicate and respond, and there's flow is there, and then really affect on communication. If we try to say communicate something, but they are not interested, and then they are against kind of opposite way, and they walk in opposite way, and then it's hard to communicate, right? Just think about relation between the friends, communication, talking, and even though sometimes it's not important and not the important, they don't communicate important stuff and just really, talking about their life, about, the communication flow, give and take, right? And about, that is a kind of flow. But if you communicate, if you go to organization and you cannot communicate like that, but still, just think about if you have a knowledge and experience, and then anyway, some even though you don't have a specific experience, but you have knowledge, and that's a kind of a communication flow in both ways, not one way. So try to listen and try to respond and say, right? There is some principles of organizational communication. So we are already talking about the factors, but what is the principle? And we need skills. So message is kind of, we gotta send a message and receive the message. And we need skills. With the person skills, and then we gotta understand what he tried to say, and then we need skills, right? Depends on, some people cannot communicate, in also poverty, but so how can you communicate with them, right? We need skill to communicate with the harmful peoples. And another thing is organizational communication. It's not about friendship relationship and for the clarity, and then communicate straight. Straight answer. It seems like no, it's not seems like yes, no, clear. And informations and talk, and then you gotta clear straight. So it's, I think, no, don't say that. If you have right information, and the information you gotta present to the source, and then say that, research said that, and then maybe you can memorize names and publish, and then years, and then much better, and then just straight, not the implicit, right? Explicitly. So amount of redundancy and feedback, and amount of face-to-face communication. So how much you can repeat, that is really important. Too much is boring, but it should really emphasize something, and you're gonna repeat. That is a very important thing. And I know some of them have kind of insight, and teachers, when they are teaching, and then kept repeating some word, and then the student catch them. Oh, that's very important. Maybe there's on the test like that. And redundancy, repeating is one of the ways to emphasize. Maybe sometimes a lack of vocabulary, and then repeat, it should make people boring. So when you write, and then so don't use the same vocabulary. And always there is a suggestion vocabulary, but think about the nuance, right? That's hard. And feedback. How much you want to feedback? And maybe sometimes too much, so frustrating and really criticizing. But how can we give them a constructive feedback like this? And there is encouragement is there, but we can deliver the critical messages there, right? And that one is also. And nowadays we don't do the face-to-face communications. So we use a lot of Zoom, but still a lot of companies try to bring them to the office, right? Workers to the office, and then because even though we depends the work at the persons who the quality was a characteristic of the work, and then maybe someone can stay, but and then if they need, and then they have an in-person meeting, and they have a Zoom meeting every day, like my daughters, and then they can stay communicate. But how much? It's really important. And personal skills and planning. How can develop the skill, and how can you organize your message and present? And some people really have good skills, and then some people not. And maybe some people communication and writing, written communication. Some people is oral communication. Depends on, but still, which if you need a communicating person orally, and then what? We gotta do that. Practice, and plan. How can you present? And that is really important. And once I don't spend that much time on practicing and develop the communication skills, but my daughter once she had a group project, and she got to present her stuff, and then maybe a week ago she finished everything and keep memorize and try to say something out and practice. I did in the beginning when I preach, and sometimes it's hard, and I don't preach in English, and sometimes I write everything and then try to ask someone read, and then still there is that one kind of helped me to develop my preaching skills and communication skills later on, because as you try and over, and kind of you develop your confidence, you develop the comfortness, and then maybe starting at some point you present, you deliver your message comfortably, right? And then how can you filtering the message? How much you can take it? How can the message is true or not? What message is really exaggerated, and what part is really down, kind of ignored, and then there's a filtering is a really important thing. So when you communication, and then you gotta kind of keep the basic principles. Another thing is that we gotta know that administrators multiple role, particularly as a leader, and then what kind of leadership style you can use, and as a leader, how can you develop school culture, and then nurture and school culture, right? And then share the values, and then creating vision and leading them. That is one of that, and they also leaders has to do, and then he needs to use the right leadership style in the context, school context, right? And there's a lot of different roles as for the administrators. And then first of all, as a communicator, and think about sending a message and receiving the message and monitoring. What's the monitoring? You gotta, some project is going on, you gotta watch over it, supervise sometimes. And seeking, sometimes you gotta write things, try to find information, and then try to write. That is a roles. And that is a, think about when you do this one, the communication is really important, right? Really important. And as a communicator, you gotta relate to parents, you gotta relate to community, and district, and teachers, and students, and what. step. How can you communicate? And how can you buy their heart, and how can you put together for work, right? And accomplish the goal. That's why you need to be effective communicator. Good communicator. Effective sometimes, yeah, it's okay, but we gotta skillful communicator. So we need to answer administrator and need to be skillful communicator. So we gotta know the diverse communication windows. I already taught, right? But what about cultural issues? Another thing. How can you overcome the cultural difference and understand? Think about the Western culture is here, and then what's an individualistic culture and collective cultures here. And when you go to elementary school and primary school, consider how diverse. Kids are from Korea and India and China. The parents are first generation, they're born in other countries and raised in their country and immigrant here. Still, the children are influenced by parents. And just think about how can you communicate with the parents. Maybe if you are Asian and then you understand much better than the other parents. And think about communities. Some are Hispanic, Latino, some are white, Caucasian, right? Some are black. How can you communicate? They have their own cultures. And maybe you sometimes administrator and then they are speaker, right? In front of students, in front of parents, and maybe in small present something, and maybe sometime with students. Listen. Maybe there's meetings there and teachers association is bringing some opinion and then they present, you listen. And there is, and then how can you perform all different roles as a communicator? That is really important, right? It's really important. So, if you are thinking about planning to be an administrator in the future, and I think this class is really helpful, and then we are not gonna touch the specific issues like security issues and teacher salary issue, but not the basic one. But we are talking about the school cultures, we are talking about leadership, and talking about human relations, and talking about the communication and making decision and evaluation, all kind of different. It's a fundamental element. But if you have more specific issues like cultural issues going on at school, how can you deal with it? What about bullies? I don't want to talk about that one, right? So I hope that you guys have some insight from the class, and then maybe we are talking about the organization and schools organization, but if you think about church organizations, a little bit religious organization, a little bit different from schools and from the company, but still we can get a lot of insight. How can learn churches, right? And it's not a business sector. It's not usually we call it non-profit sector, but still, how can we run the church organization effectively and achieve the goal of the church? What is the goal of the church? Show the God's love to the world, right? All right, so I hope that you guys have some insight from here. I know still a lot of your leadership is coming out related to articles and styles a little bit different, but still every main was the element is leadership is very important. Meaning that leaders plays a pivotal role in running the school organization. So I hope that it's not a repeating, but still repeating. But I hope that you guys kind of understanding about how important leadership is in as an administrator. And so if you have any questions, and just let's talk about it, and then maybe you can send an email. So today is still. I hope that next week is weather is getting better, and then we have sunny Southern California weather. But I hope and everybody stay healthy and try to take care of yourself. All right. God bless you guys, and see you next week. Bye.